Picture this for a second. It's 1937. The world is holding its breath. Radios are buzzing. Newspapers are being printed at record speed. Hey. And one name is on everyone's lips. Amelia Earhart. Then suddenly, silence. No final message. No wreckage. No answers. Just a mystery so big it refuses to stay buried even nearly a century later. And now, after decades of theories, false alarms, and wild guesses, one investigator is stepping forward with a chilling claim, saying they've finally confirmed where Amelia Earhart was found. This isn't just another dusty history story. This is a tale of ambition, fame, obsession, and a woman who became bigger than life itself. Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot. She was a global celebrity before celebrities were even a thing. She broke records, shattered expectations, and smiled for the cameras while daring the world to tell her no. She flew solo across the Atlantic when people said it couldn't be done. She became the face of courage, independence, and modern womanhood. And that fame, it's made her disappearance one of the most haunting unsolved cases of all time. On July 2nd, 1937, Amelia and her navigator, Fred Noonan, vanished somewhere over the vast Pacific Ocean during their attempt to fly around the world. The last confirmed radio messages suggested they were low on fuel. Desperately searching for Howland Island, a tiny speck of land surrounded by endless water. Then, nothing. The U.S. government launched the most expensive search in history at the time. Ships, planes, thousands of miles scanned, but the ocean gave nothing back. For decades, theories exploded in every direction. Some said she crashed and sank, lost forever beneath the waves. Others believed she landed on a remote island and survived for days, maybe weeks. Some went even further, claiming she was captured by enemy forces, lived under a false name, or even returned to the U.S. in secret. Each theory had believers. Each theory had holes. And Amelia Earhart slowly transformed from a real person into a legend. But here's where things get unsettling. An investigator who has spent years, some say, a lifetime studying Amelia's final flight, claims that the truth has been hiding in plain sight. According to this investigator, the evidence doesn't point to the open ocean. It points to land, a specific place, a forgotten island that most people had never heard of until Amelia's name became attached to it. Nikumaroro Island. Remote, isolated, brutally unforgiving. The theory goes like this. Amelia didn't crash into the sea. She made a controlled landing on a reef. The radio signals that were picked up for days after her disappearance, they weren't static or imagination. They were real. Distress calls made when the tide was low, when the plane's engines could still function, when hope was still alive. As the days passed, the tides rose. The plane was damaged. Eventually, it was dragged into the ocean piece by piece, erased by time. But Amelia and Fred, according to this investigator, they didn't die instantly. They became castaways. Over the years, strange discoveries began piling up. Bones found on the island decades ago. Shoes that matched the style Amelia was known to wear. Makeshift tools. Pieces of metal that didn't belong to any known shipwreck in the area. Even reports of an old campsite, as if someone had tried desperately to survive. For a long time, these clues were dismissed. Labeled inconclusive. Lost in storage. Forgotten in footnotes. But modern forensic analysis changed the game. Measurements were re-examined. Old records were digitized, and suddenly the puzzle pieces started clicking together in a way they never had before. The investigator claims that when all the data is laid out side by side, it tells a tragic but powerful story. Amelia Earhart didn't disappear without a trace. She didn't vanish into thin air. She fought. She survived the landing. She waited. And slowly, painfully, the world moved on without her. What makes this claim hit harder is how close rescue might have been. Search planes reportedly flew over nearby islands. Ships passed through surrounding waters. Amelia may have been alive, watching the horizon, hoping every distant sound was help finally coming. Imagine being one of the most famous women on Earth, and dying alone, unheard, on a strip of land no one was looking at closely enough. And yet, despite all this, the mystery refuses to fully close. Critics argue the evidence still isn't definitive. Bones were lost, records were incomplete. The ocean is still vast and unforgiving. Some aviation experts insist a crash at sea remains the most likely outcome. Others question whether the artifacts truly belonged to Amelia at all. The debate is far from over. But that's the strange power of Amelia Earhart. Even in uncertainty, she commands attention. She pulls people in. She refuses to be forgotten. Hollywood has tried to tell her story again and again. Movies, documentaries, dramatizations, each one paints her as fearless, glamorous, unstoppable. But the possible reality? It's quieter, sadder, more human. A woman who pushed boundaries, paid the ultimate price, and left behind a mystery that mirrors the risks she took in life. The investigator who claims to have confirmed where Amelia was found doesn't present it as a triumphant discovery. There's no victory lap, no neat ending. It's just a somber conclusion that feels heavy when you sit with it. If this is truly where Amelia Earhart spent her final days, then her story isn't just about flight. It's about endurance, isolation, and the thin line between fame and fragility, and maybe that's why we still talk about her. Not because she vanished, but because she represents something we all understand. The desire to go further, to be remembered, to matter. Amelia Earhart chased the edge of the map, and when she disappeared, she became part of it. So the next time you hear her name, don't just think about the mystery, think about the woman behind it. The sound of the engine, the endless sky. The courage it takes to fly into the unknown. Knowing there might not be a way back, because even now, all these years later, Amelia Earhart is still taking us on one last journey, and we're still trying to figure out where it truly ended. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing at the edge of the world. The sun is rising, the ocean stretches endlessly in every direction, and the roar of an aircraft engine fills the air. Inside that plane sits one of the most famous women alive. Amelia Earhart. Confident, calm, determined. She waves, smiles, and takes off unaware that this moment will become the final image the world ever sees of her. What happened next has haunted history for nearly 90 years. Amelia Earhart wasn't just another pilot chasing records. She was a symbol. A woman who lived in a time when the sky was considered off limits, especially for someone like her. But Amelia never accepted limits. She flew higher, farther, and faster than anyone expected. The media followed her everywhere. Cameras flashed. Headlines screamed her name. She became a global icon, celebrated not just for flying planes, but for daring to exist boldly in a world that wasn't ready for her. By 1937, Amelia was determined to do what no one had ever done before, fly around the world along the equator. It wasn't just a journey, it was a statement. With her navigator Fred Noonan beside her, she began the most dangerous leg of the trip over the Pacific Ocean. Thousands of miles of water, no place to land, no room for error. Then came the silence. Radio operators waited. Search crews listened. Governments panicked. Amelia Earhart had vanished. The U.S. Navy launched an enormous search operation. Ships swept the seas. Planes scanned the horizon. Millions of dollars were spent. But the ocean remained cruelly quiet. No plane, no bodies, no answers. And slowly, painfully, the official search was called off. But the world refused to let her go. For decades, Amelia Earhart became history's most famous question mark. Theories multiplied. Some said her plane ran out of fuel and plunged straight into the ocean. Others insisted she landed on an island and survived as a castaway. Some stories became so wild they bordered on fantasy secret missions, fake identities, even claims that she returned home unnoticed. Yet one theory refused to die. An investigator, driven by obsession and respect for Amelia's legacy, began digging deeper into one specific location. A speck of land in the Pacific, brutally remote, barely visible on a map. Nikomaroro Island. According to this investigator, Amelia didn't crash into the sea. She landed hard but alive. Here's where the story turns chilling. In the days after, Amelia disappeared. Multiple radio operators across the Pacific reported hearing distress calls. Weak, broken, desperate. These signals didn't come from the ocean floor. They could only have been sent if the plane was on land or at least above water. The messages stopped when tides rose, when batteries failed, when hope faded. Years later, British colonists on Nikomaroro reported finding human bones. At the time, they were dismissed, poorly measured, poorly analyzed, labeled male, forgotten. But modern science told a different story. When those measurements were re-examined using updated forensic methods, something shocking emerged. The bones matched a woman, a tall woman. A woman with Amelia Earhart's physical proportions. And that wasn't all. Investigators uncovered a woman's shoe sole from the era. A brand Amelia was known to wear. Pieces of metal consistent with aircraft debris. Makeshift tools, suggesting someone tried to survive. Even remnants of a campfire. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't coincidence. The investigator claims the evidence paints a heartbreaking picture. Amelia Earhart survived the landing. She and Fred Noonan likely explored the island, searching for water, food, and rescue. Fred, injured or weakened, may have died first. Amelia may have lived on alone, injured, dehydrated, slowly realizing that help wasn't coming. And perhaps the most devastating detail of all? Rescue was close. Search planes flew nearby. Ships passed within miles. Amelia may have seen them, heard them, watched them disappear beyond the horizon. The world searching for her. Just not in the right place. Critics, of course, remain skeptical. Some argue the bones are gone. The artifacts inconclusive. The ocean still the most likely grave. And they may be right. Absolute certainty remains just out of reach. But maybe that's the point, Amelia. Earhart's story was never meant to end neatly. She lived on the edge of danger. She chased uncertainty. She believed the risk was worth the reward. And in doing so, she left behind a mystery as bold as the life she lived. Hollywood has tried to romanticize her, to turn her into legend. But if this investigator is right, the truth is far more human. A woman who dared greatly, who survived longer than anyone imagined, and who faced the end with the same courage that carried her. Into the sky, Amelia Earhart didn't just disappear. She left a question that refuses to be answered. And maybe, somewhere on that silent island, her story still lingers, carried by the wind, echoing across the reef, reminding us that some legends don't fade. They wait to be understood. Imagine being so famous that the entire world knows your face, your smile, your voice. Imagine being celebrated as fearless, unstoppable, and ahead of your time. Now imagine that same world searching for you desperately and never finding you. That was Amelia Earhart. Her disappearance didn't just shock people. It froze time. Even today, nearly 90 years later, her name still carries weight. It still sparks debates, documentaries, arguments, and late-night theories. And that's because Amelia Earhart wasn't just lost. She was taken by the unknown. Amelia grew up believing she was meant for more. Long before airplanes became common, she was already fascinated by speed, height, and danger. When she first saw an aircraft, she didn't see fear, she saw freedom. And that mindset pushed her into history. She became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She broke altitude records, distance records, speed records, and with every achievement, her fame grew. Hollywood loved her. The media adored her. She became a symbol of courage and independence in a world that still believed women should stay grounded. Amelia challenged that idea every time she took off, but with fame came pressure. By 1937, Amelia wasn't just flying for herself anymore. She was flying for history, for legacy, for proof that limits were meant to be broken. Her plan to fly around the world along the equator was incredibly dangerous. Many experts warned her not to attempt it. Navigation technology was unreliable. Weather was unpredictable. Fuel calculations had to be perfect. Still, she went. The final leg of her journey was the most terrifying. A long stretch of the Pacific Ocean with almost nowhere to land. Howland Island, her destination, was barely visible even from the air. Missing it by just a few miles could mean death. As Amelia flew, radio communication became weak. Her messages sounded tense, confused. She reported running low on fuel. She said she couldn't see the island. Then came the last transmission. And after that, nothing. The silence was deafening. Search teams were deployed immediately. The U.S. government spared no expense. It was the largest search operation of its time. Planes crisscrossed the skies. Ships scanned endless miles of ocean. Newspapers followed every development. Families prayed. Fans waited. But Amelia never came home. Officially, the conclusion was simple. She ran out of fuel and crashed into the sea. Lost forever. But that explanation never felt right. People refused to believe that someone as legendary as Amelia Earhart could simply vanish without a trace. And over time, strange details began to surface. Radio operators reported hearing distress calls days after her disappearance. Messages that sounded like a woman asking for help. Messages that could only have been transmitted. The plane was not underwater. That's when one investigator started asking dangerous questions. What if Amelia didn't crash into the ocean? What if she landed? Nikiomororo Island became the center of attention. A remote coral island, harsh and unforgiving. No fresh water. Scorching sun. Sharp reefs. It was the kind of place no one could survive on for long. Unless they had no other choice. Years after Amelia vanished, human bones were discovered on the island. At the time, they were poorly analyzed and quickly dismissed. But decades later, when forensic experts re-examined the original measurements, the conclusion changed dramatically. The bones likely belonged to a woman. Woman of Amelia Earhart's height and build. Then came more discoveries. A woman's shoe sole from the 1930s, aviation-related metal fragments. Signs of human activity where no permanent settlement existed. Even evidence suggesting someone tried to signal passing ships or planes. According to the investigator, this wasn't coincidence. This was survival. The theory paints a haunting picture. Amelia lands her damaged plane on the reef. She and Fred Noonan escape. They explore the island. They ration supplies. Fred, possibly injured, grows weaker. Amelia, alone and desperate, waits for rescue that never arrives. And here's the part that keeps. People awake at night. Search aircraft flew over nearby islands. They were close. So close that Amelia might have seen them. Might have heard the engines. Might have believed help was finally coming only to watch it fade into the distance. The idea that the world searched for her while she waited. Unseen is almost unbearable. Skeptics argue that nothing is proven beyond doubt. The bones were lost. The artifacts debated. The ocean remains vast and unforgiving. And they're not wrong. The mystery still breathes. But the investigator insists the evidence, taken together, tells a story that can't be ignored. Amelia Earhart didn't vanish instantly. She survived longer than anyone ever imagined. And maybe that's why her story hurts so much, because it reminds us that even heroes can be fragile. Even legends can be alone. Even the most famous woman on earth can be forgotten on a silent island. Amelia Earhart chased the sky knowing the risks. She believed that fear was the cost of progress. And in the end, her life became the very mystery she once flew over. Her story isn't just about disappearance, it's about bravery. It's about ambition. It's about the price of chasing the impossible. And maybe, somewhere on that lonely island, the echoes of her final days still remain whispering a story the world is still trying to hear. Disclaimer. The content in this video is based on publicly available information, media sources, and opinions. It is created for entertainment and educational purposes only. We do not claim or guarantee that every detail is 100% accurate.